Hello again to a next video of mine. This time I will draw Deadpool with colored pencils. So I'm already starting out and with a pencil I'm drawing the outlines of Deadpool, not too much of detail, just to get a rough idea. Often I just double check if like when I do like characters of the mimics are according to my reference. But here, since Deadpool actually has no face, I could really quickly go on and do the rest of the outlines. Yeah, just finishing the hands here, so I will know where to apply the colored pencils. Um, and you will be able to see here that I not completely 100% I am according to my reference, because look at the heart shape he's forming with his hands. The belt behind it should be seen in this heart form, this heart shape. I will add it later, but it's not important if you are not 100% exactly how your reference is. Everybody still will recognize Deadpool, right? So, um, I already started now with the colored pencils, and actually his black eye area is like structured, has like this kind of leather structure, and I wanted to use the structure of the paper to make this leather-like look. So, for example, on the right side of the eye, I wasn't applying, firstly, not too much of pressure, because you could see the structure of the paper. But then, on the other hand, it actually has to look black, those eyes. Now you see like the black on the left side is way more intense than on the right side, so I had to make some adjustments. So the viewer of the picture actually gets this image of, or this uh, yeah, illusion of black material. Just now take into consideration how long my red colored pencil is. Um, when you are drawing Deadpool, then you should bring a lot of black and red colored pencils. I'm starting with a like a middle color, not too dark, not too bright, because then I can like go in both directions. Can brighten it up, can darken it down. The left side of the mask of Deadpool is pretty dark, so I was after that applying like darker color. Here you have like this medium red with some light spots for the nose, and then I'm darkening it down. Um, just take into consideration, like, even if you start really light with your colored pencils, you won't get a perfect white highlight with a white colored pencil over it. So if you want to really make this white highlight, then you have to, when you have white paper, you have to leave it a free spot. As I did it with the eyes, you can see like I left white spots there. Yeah, the left side of Deadpool's head is in the shade, so that's why I applied way more darker color. Just focus or try to understand from where the light is coming. Then it helps you way better to decide where the shadow is falling, and then you can see like the more you turn to the right, the brighter it gets. Just almost finishing the mask here, putting some highlights on, and still, like, that was also one thing I discovered. um, I started with the mask with not like really high pressure, and the rest was like with more and more pressure. So you have some kind of a difference of the color intensity, and you should really focus on that all the material is like the whole colors are done in the same way and with the same amount of pressure. I wanted to add some texture to the textile, to the fabric of Deadpool's clothing. And it's really time consuming, and it takes discipline that also here you just you just have to always use the same pattern. I was like applying little dots for the shadow and the fabric, but you have to take into consideration how far are those dots away, how big are the dots themselves. Otherwise, it doesn't look homogeneous. Um, I'm finished with the head. I was turning over, starting to draw the whole thing from left to right because otherwise there is this risk that you smudge the colors with your hand, depending if you're right-handed or left-handed, of course. Um, as you can see in the gray, I'm leaving bright spots because you have those highlights in the leather, and the rest I'm darkening it down. And by always overlayering colors, you can make this smooth look of round shapes and give it a really realistic look. Um, my next step for the channel is that I want to really improve the quality, and I want to change the lighting a bit because the light on my piece of paper is coming from the left, and it was kind of making the lower left corner of the paper reflecting, and you cannot see every single detail perfectly, so I'm trying to improve that. Here I'm just about I was doing the belt over the chest and turning now over to the next red spot. First ground color, then shading, then the texture. This is an important sequence because you can always, when your texture is like black, you can always make these black dots for the texture. And the nice thing is when you have the shading underneath and you put the black dots over it, then they kind of a little bit take over the color which is underneath. Means when you have like a shading which goes into the bright, then your black dots will be a little bit brighter, which makes sense because a little bit more light is casted on this part. Now I'm doing his left katana. This one I did without a ruler, so you kind of, I had to struggle a bit with it to make it really straight, to make it look that it doesn't get like thinner when it goes down. So you were seeing me kind of like erasing it sometimes. Yeah, I was shortly going back to the katana because I wasn't completely fine with it. But now I'm doing the left arm, and here you can see I wanted to make this lower arm a big white spot, but I made the red color a little bit too far, so I was using like a lot of white color, so it kind of turns into this pink color. But actually I like the result in the end. His leather bracelets or braces. I also was choosing to leave the highlight completely white, starting with the lightest gray and then going to the darker ones, and in the end making the final contour also with a black pen. And if you really pay some attention, you will be able to see that the dots I'm making, for example, it's especially at this part where the ankle of his right hand is. The dots there are bigger than elsewhere, and for itself, this area looks really nice. I really like it. But when it's not homogeneous, then you don't you get like a not consistent way of drawing the textile. Now I'm doing his glove, and he has this gray pattern on his glove, and you see it again takes time, discipline, not to lose patience because you want to finish. It's like a feeling I sometimes get or often get when I'm drawing something. I really want to finish it, and it makes me impatient. I speed up, and it just lowers the result. So take your time, it will be absolutely worth it. And after I was doing the pattern, I started shading it, and after shading it, it was overlayering my pattern again, so it wasn't like seen in a completely clear way. So you will be seeing me again drawing those patterns. I guess on the other hand, I will do it in a little bit in a slightly different way, that I make the pattern with more pressure, so when I'm shading it I don't have to do it completely once again. And it's there, I'm doing the pattern, yeah. Yeah, and when I shade it afterwards, and you leave these white spots on the top of his fingers, for example, for the highlights, it gives it a really realistic view of the gloves. I really like the result. Now I'm going over to like his lower chest, where the arms cast a shadow on his clothing. It's a really dark shadow, and you have like a deep dark contrast. But this contrast also, it's not like a thin line. It has to kind of fade into the red, quickly fade, but still fade. And after I was done with the shading, I go into the details. I make these stitches. I make this fabric, the holes, and now I'm making the belt. And as you can see, I was adjusting it a little bit, because now you can see in the heart shape, you can see a piece of the belt. And the belt also has a structure, so be patient, make every single piece for itself, and stick to your way of drawing this belt. It doesn't make sense to change it, because the belt will look completely unrealistic. Now it's time to color the heart. You have the zipper in between. You still can see I'm kind of changing. Sometimes I just start with a bright color, then I use the black colored pencil to make the zipper, and then I start shading. Sometimes I do first the shading and then the details. I think I don't specifically decide or make every single decision in my complete consciousness. Sometimes I just think, okay, now when I'm trying to shade it, I will maybe lose my reference where I should do the detail. So I'm first kind of making the zipper to not lose it after I shaded it. So I'm working my way from the left side to the right. As you can see, the right side of the zipper is a little bit more bright than the left side. And maybe it looks a little bit different on this page, because the light I'm like casting on my paper is coming from the left, but in the final result you'll see it. And this is the other shadow, which comes from the right hand, which is casted on his armor. Adding the details again, and that's the whole shadow, taking a lot of black color. You can see the red color is already so small, all the color went on the paper. this black leather applications around his throat. I was already worried if the if the red color will be enough. And his head will cast a shadow on his this red piece, like this red neck piece. And the shadow has to be really dark. And I was leaving on the light on the left a light headlight highlight, and but it was too bright to me, so later I will darken it down a little bit. It's I like it to draw it in those segments, always completely finishing a segment. Then you don't have the risk that you have to go over it again, and with the risk of smudging everything. And you can quickly see the final result, which keeps motivating you. Go on and just keep on drawing. Now I arrived at the right hand, and again applying the exact same pattern, deliberately, line by line, because Deadpool wouldn't wear two different gloves. Exactly, I'm shading it a bit. I wasn't completely finishing the whole pattern, because the fingers, the lower side of the fingers, were so dark that you don't see the pattern. So you can save some time, because it doesn't make sense to draw a pattern and then completely uh, darken it with black. You have his, like, you can see the anatomy of his hand, how it's reflecting the light, this bright spot, and how it gets dark inside of the palm of Deadpool. And I was doing this pattern like for the first time, and I really like the result. Just if you do it like with confidence and stick to your pattern, then I'm sure you will find a result you would like. So I wasn't, when you take your time and watch the details, I wasn't completely consistent regarding the structure of the fabric. And I think this is what bugs me the most about this picture, and what I would like to do that better. But it would be completely the wrong decision to just stop the whole painting. Um, I think finishing a painting is the best lesson you can get out of it. Like, just when you started something, finish it, and you will make all the experience you would want to get. I was wondering what kind of gloves he actually was wearing, because they are ending pretty short if you look at his hands. Like, normally gloves go over the ankle, and it looks like that they end here a little bit earlier. This is the other leather band, which is a little bit darker on the lower side. I'm almost done with the whole picture. I think this was the time when I finally found out that my red color will be enough. Excuse me. Yeah, he has like a leather application on his, like, the side of his hip. And of course, when you draw the dots on the fabric, the way you put the dots on it, they also give a sense of the if the fabric is like stretching, if it makes waves and so on. So really, before you just put dots anywhere, just first think how they should go to make the best impression. And I arrived at the right shoulder, where it's darker at the armpit, and the upper arm, the biceps get a little bit more of the light. And then some leather applications. But exactly, I'm using a ruler now. I decided to go on with the second katana, and by using the ruler I was like sketching the outline more precisely, so I was not fearing to make it like getting thinner or so. And every single surface has to be the same. I think that's the biggest take out of the whole picture, that if you decide to draw a certain piece a certain way, then just stick to it. Go on and follow up. Don't let your own mind like get you impatient, otherwise it will be just the waste of your time. And here you see, putting some darker shades on the shadow, and I am basically done. Thank you for listening. I hope it helps you to draw yourself. See you.